everyone, and welcome to the Alexa Show. My name is Alexa Servodidio, and I am your host. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Well, tonight I have such an incredible show planned. On the line, I have Eric Aaron Alter. He's a producer, a playwright, and also a director at a private school in New Jersey. Eric, welcome to the Alexa Show.
Thanks for having me, Alexa.
Yes, I really wanted to have you back on tonight to really discuss numerous topics such as COVID, school kids, also the theater, and all the work that you've been doing. What have you been seeing a lot going on in the school system?
So right now in New Jersey, from March until basically July 1st, as I think New York and most probably everywhere else around the country, schools have been forced to close. In New Jersey recently, the governor has sort of given schools like ours the choice to stay open during the summer and have what's called an extended school year program. I know a number of schools have chosen not to have kids back on site just yet for a variety of reasons. I think that some new guidelines have come out in terms of cleaning procedures and all types of social distancing and things like that. So I think they're waiting, we're waiting, and I think most schools are waiting till September to have a full reopen. And it's really going to be a combination, I think, for schools and kids to come to school a certain amount of days a week and other days to do a virtual type of thing. So right now we haven't really had kids back in our building since March. And our goal is, in accordance with the state and local health guidelines, to have students back in the building in September.
Yes, yes. And I think, there's so many different layers to this with returning to school, with virtual learning, and combining both. And other therapists, and I know you also are in the mental health field, I find, there is also some positives to this, because I think a lot of times, I deal with a lot of children and teens that have issues with anxiety, bullying, depression, OCD. So even getting up and going to school is such a trigger, is such a trauma to them. And I found by being home virtually and doing the programs virtually, they've been able to come out of their shell a little bit more and focus more on the studies than on the different disorders that they have. And also I know those who do enjoy going to school, it's been a transition to learn virtually, as I think even as adults, when we are online learning virtual and taking CEU courses, it takes a different type of focus and mindset, and I think self-discipline to be able to sit in front of a screen and do this. What do you think about that?
So I think it's a great point all around. I mean, I think there's two sort of different ways to look at it. I think the one way is, what has the COVID done to not only schools, but to families? On the plus side, I think people certainly spent a lot of time together where they may not have prior, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. I think for kids and students, it's sort of a double-edged sword. I think there's a positiveness that you can get from staying home and doing virtual learning for a period of time, and to speak to some of the mental health issues that you spoke about. For some of those kids getting up every day and coming to school that suffer from, school phobia, anxiety, OCD, bullying, it's sort of a respite where they're able to stay home and not have to worry about the surrounding stressors of other students and all those kinds of things, and can focus on their studies. On the other, flip side of the coin is that, look, school brings out a tremendous amount of socialization. It brings out a tremendous amount of friendships. It brings out a tremendous amount of learning that, although I know it's being done more virtually, for a lot of students, they need that teacher in front of the classroom. They need to see it on a blackboard. They need to touch it on a computer where they can have a teacher come right over to them and sort of show them what they're doing. Also, in a school like ours, and other schools as well, we have what we call our special subjects, and things like wood shop that you can't really do virtually online, and even gym and recess and those kinds of things. I mean, it's different when a gym teacher says, hey, go out and run around the block or do push-ups and sit-ups, virtually, as opposed to having somebody there in school with you. So there's pros and cons to both models. But I think overall, I think most people would agree that having students back in school is probably the goal, of almost every educator.
Yes, because you find also too, before COVID, there's been so many, I hear from so many parents that, oh, my child is on social media, on video games, even if they're saying, I'm interacting with others that are all over in different countries, and they speak and they do the different video games. It still is a lot different than having that in-person, face-to-face interaction. I think so many times too, on the flip side of that, is children don't learn how to interact face-to-face. Sometimes you're a little bit, stronger, have more self-confidence behind the screen than in person. So I can see definitely both sides. There are pros and cons. And I know a lot of times, bullying and cyberbullying and social media, we've spoken about a lot. How do you think that has begun so much because now our students, our children are really online all the time for school, for, different types of homework. Do you feel like the cyberbullying and the bullying has really increased?
I mean, I don't have any hard data to say that it has or it hasn't, but I can only imagine that, now that students are home, it brings in, unfortunately for bullies, it brings in a whole different layer. Like, I'm looking right now at you and what your background is. You have a bed there, you have things. People get to see where other people live and what their conditions are. And, if they have, a pet or a dog, or they live with 5 people or 2 people or 7 people. So, it also sort of speaks to, their current situation. What are they wearing on the Zoom call? Now people can take pictures, they can get out their phone and take a picture of you. And I'm sure that it opens the door for more, unfortunately, it may open the door for more bullying, because now you're, just like you said, standing behind or sitting behind a computer screen. So it becomes easier in a way, to do the cyberbullying, to do the social media type of bullying and those kinds of things.
Yes. Now, you're also a playwright, and you've had many, many plays about social issues, mental health issues. How has that been? Do you feel a play might come out about COVID-19?
Well, interestingly enough, I haven't really written anything about COVID, although I did have an idea the other day about, an online COVID dating play where, you don't actually get to meet the person, and you have like a date basically online, like a Zoom date kind of thing. But I haven't had any, inspiration in terms of writing something about the pandemic. But I think that there's so many, areas and topics that you could write about. I mean, certainly about loss. I mean, when COVID first hit, people had obviously loved ones that died, and they were not actually able to have a funeral for them at the time, which I can't even imagine. And loved ones weren't able to travel far distances to see their deceased. People currently who have loved ones in nursing homes. A friend of mine's mother is in a nursing home. He said to me the other day, I went to the nursing home and I talked to her through the window. I mean, it's a crazy new world that we're living in. I know people are trying to adapt to it as best they can, but to speak to, what you said before about mental health issues, I mean, it has been an incredibly stressful time for not only students and staff of schools, but for basically anybody dealing with this, virus. It's affected all walks of life and all jobs, So yes, it's a very, very stressful thing. And I'm sure you will start to see plays in the future about the COVID situation and how family dynamics happen, because some people have been, I don't want to tongue in cheek, but some people have been locked up with their families for months, and unable to really go out and do the things they normally could do.
Yes. And I think, if either you're suffering with a mental illness or not, it's such an adjustment, a way of living But I think it's also such a hard idea to grasp. Yes, we're all going through it, we're living through it. It's reality. But I know I even find myself sometimes, walking into the store or doing something and saying, wait a second, there's a virus. I have to put my mask on. Wait a second. I have to also keep that second thought before doing those daily things, going to the supermarket, going to the dentist, doing that. There's that extra little, kind of thought about it. And I think, if you're suffering with a mental disorder, anxiety, or anything like that, I can only just imagine how now there's even overthinking. And a lot of times, people who had just started socializing before COVID, who's made those community networks, who've made those support teams, to have them cut off. And I think it happened kind of so quickly. We were all a little like, what's going on? And then, then next we know, we're in the house for 2-3 months with really no contact except if you have a computer or a phone.
Sure. And I think, you bring up a great point. I mean, I just think about people that are, struggling with addictions or alcoholics. They used to be able to go to an AA meeting where there were people there. Now I'm sure, and I don't know because it's not really my area, but I'm sure they have, AA meetings online. Is it the same? I don't know. But, as a therapist yourself, I'm sure that, people are doing, telemedicine now, and you're doing it over the internet and things like that. For some people, I think that that's okay. But I think other people really enjoy going to someone's office and having that sort of interaction with them. So I think it loses a lot. And just an example, the other day I had to go to the doctor for a routine checkup. And, the waiting room, you couldn't bring anybody with you. You had to go in at a certain time. So, for people that are going to doctors and getting care, for a husband, wife, spouse, whatever, they're not able to actually even come in the room with them anymore. So that's a whole other added layer of stress. So there's a lot of stress and mental health issues associated with this virus, unfortunately.
Yes, and I think it's really, I think, going to be a time where people have really had a chance to self-reflect and really look into themselves and how what their day used to look like, what their supports are. And I think really, you start to really appreciate what you have, who you have, the freedoms that we have to be able to go to the store anytime we want, or, go see a doctor. And I think it really puts life into perspective, because I've also, been speaking to clients who've actually found a positive out of this, to find some, just kind of cope through it, that they've really been able to have that time to work on themselves, to really say, you know what, I have to, face myself. I have to deal with what's going on because there's really nothing else to do. And also because they're put in such, a crisis situation. And I'm working with a lot of people in NA and AA, and there are a lot of Zoom meetings. And one positive that I've really heard about them is that you don't just have to go to your own meeting in your own town. Now, because of virtually, there are people from New York who are going to meetings in California or going to meetings in other states, where I think is a real positive, because sometimes, you have to find a meeting that suits you, that where you feel comfortable to open up. So maybe that kind of opened up the selection for them. They have a better group of meetings to pick from and choose. But I think it's really also, though, a different way of living, almost a quick lifestyle change that we all had to abruptly start to adjust. How has it been for you to plan once school starts back? Do you think you're going to start writing again? Are you going to give it a break? Because I know you have a screenplay and you've been doing some other things that are in the works.
So, I've been fortunate enough that even though we're closed physically, I still do work, working remotely and have meetings that are on the phone, conference calls, and actually go into various classrooms that are going on, and I sort of do observe and I say hello to the kids, and so it's been a busy day, for the most part. I actually come to the building. Now we're allowed back in the building, so I actually come to the building each day and do work, getting prepared for the reopening. I think we probably will reopen for a period of time, meaning, we might go to school a couple of days a week and then close for cleaning. and I don't know how long we'll remain open because everybody's talking about this second wave kind of thing. So we'll see. As far as writing goes, I've been fortunate enough to, even though I am working, to have some free time, and I've been working on, I think the last time I was on with you, I told you I was writing a television pilot that's actually, ironically, takes place in a school. So I've since finished that. I've sent it to a couple of people out in California that I know that are in the business, trying to get it looked at and discovered. I'm in the process of writing another play, a full-length play about a woman who had a stroke a while on a vacation in Mexico with her family, and it was a whole big story of how she couldn't get out of the country, and they thought she was going to die, and turns out she didn't, and her life completely changed. So I've been working on that, and then just other odds and ends types of things. So I've had some time to do some writing, and like you said, reflecting upon what's happened, because this virus, no matter who you are, what you do, it has had an impact on you on some level. Like you said, you went out to the store and you realize you got to put a mask on. I mean, that's the new normal now, is everybody's wearing a mask. I mean, that's just, in 3 or 4 months, it's become the new normal in the country. So dealing with that is stressful. Going to the grocery store for some people and dealing with those things is stressful. So we kind of have to learn how to adapt to those things.
Yes. How do you stay inspired during all of this? And even before all of this, what inspires you to do the work that you do?
Well, staying inspired can be tough. I think that the COVID thing, a lot of people that I know, there was sort of a period of, I guess, depression might be a little bit strong, but feeling kind of down and depressed, that you couldn't go out and do the things that you normally did. You couldn't go to the movies. You couldn't go see a play. Broadway shut down. You couldn't even go out to dinner. I mean, things, at least in New Jersey, I'm not sure how it was in New York, but most things closed at 8 o'clock in New Jersey. You couldn't go to a mall. Now, like, some pools are open, some places are open, but it was tough, I think, at first to really sort of be inspired by it. But I think that the way, for me, at least how I got inspired was, I was able to sort of take a step back and see, I think, the country in a lot of ways. I know there's some turmoil that's going on, but I think the essential workers and police and fire and ambulances and nurses and doctors and teachers who worked remotely, and all those people, and mental health workers and everybody, I think you saw some of the inspiring ways that they came together and rose up, and you just started to think about yourself, and you say, hey, look, I don't really have it that bad. I'm healthy. I don't have the virus. I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the worst thing in the world. And I think you sort of do a little shift on your perspective, and I think it has inspired me to have a little bit more alone time and do some writing and things like that. So
Absolutely. And I think it's also, a lot of times, you have to kind of try different things to see what inspires you. And I think so many times people think you should just know, and that's not always the case. It takes work to figure out what inspires you, what motivates you. And I think it takes a lot of trial and error, and that's okay. And I think in time you learn to embrace that. And during that process, you're able to find out who you are and what makes you you. And then also start to feel comfortable in your own skin. Because I think it's so important, self-care, and also knowing what is motivating for you. What are your passions, and really being able to take care of yourself. And I think having this extra time that we have to be with ourselves really can be a positive, where we can focus on, okay, what are my goals? What are things that are in my, range that I can actually do right now during these different circumstances that I can accomplish? And I think also, setting short-term goals, setting small, achievable goals. So you start bringing up, increasing your self-confidence, increasing, being positive, and finding that hope in the world. Because I find it's so important to have that hope and to have that joy, and also looking forward to what tomorrow could bring.
Sure. I mean, I think you make an absolutely great point, and that is, making goals for yourself and self-care. A lot of the gyms around the country were closed, so now you were forced to sort of, come up with your own workouts at home or going walks. And, for me personally, just on a personal note, like I lost about 14 pounds. I used to go out to dinner all the time. So I was forced to sort of learn how to cook a little bit, eat healthier, work out in a different way. Somebody that works out 6 days a week, I couldn't go to a gym. So I was forced to come up with new plans. And I did say to myself, look, I may never, ever, ever get this time again. And if I don't make the best out of the time that I have, like time off, and, then I only have myself to blame. So I have done a lot of writing, and I think people should embrace it. Like you said, look, they're not commuting every day the way they used to be, right? They weren't getting up at 5 a.m, getting on a train and a bus. Now you're working from home. I'm not saying that you're not working hard, but you have more time to be with your family. You have more time to do self-care for yourself, all the time in the car and on the bus and the train and all those things. And even traveling, when people travel for work, you have that time now. So if you don't make the most out of that time, whatever that most means for you, family, writing a book, learning an instrument, learning a language, all those kinds of things, I mean, you may never get that time again to do that.
Yes. I always tell people this is a once in a lifetime chance, that this is a time in the world where everybody in the world is in the same exact spot that you are.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to feel guilty, like maybe I should be going to work more, maybe I should be going to the gym more, maybe I should be doing this. Everybody is home in their houses trying to figure out what they can do, how they can do it. And you can also take that time to say, okay, even when you're working from home, make sure you take your days off, and also make sure you have some vacation days. Because so many times people say, well, you're on vacation, you're home. No, you work a lot harder sometimes when you're at home because you feel like, I'm home, I should be working more. But I think, taking those couple of days off and giving yourself that vacation, so you also learn how to kind of relax your mind and also decompress.
Sure. I mean, I always tell people, especially the kids, they come in early in the morning off the bus and I hate school and blah, blah, blah. I hate it here. I want to be home. And I always tell people, and even the teachers sometimes, I say, be careful what you wish for. So now what you wish for came true, right? You get to get out of your bed each morning. You don't have to shower, get in your PJs. You can learn from it. But I have to tell you that so many people want to be back to work, and they want to be back at school. And I think it just speaks volumes for, who we are as human beings is, we want to have that interaction. It's great to have a Zoom meeting, and, a friend of mine from high school set up this Zoom meeting every Thursday night for anybody who wanted to attend, just sit around, talk. And I think those things are great. But at the end of the day, human beings have a need for personal interaction, personal touch, being less than 6 feet apart from somebody, getting a hug from somebody, shaking hands, high-fiving, those things has sort of gone by the wayside. I do think, and I have hope that we will get back to that. It may take a year, it may take 6 months, but I do think we will get back to that. And, hopefully we've come out the other side of this entire pandemic better people, and learn a lot about, like you said, ourselves, our families, our spouses, our, kids, those kinds of things.
Absolutely. We're almost at the end of the show. Eric, what would be one piece of advice that you would give those kids getting ready to go back to school, either virtually or in person, that are feeling a little nervous or apprehensive, and also the parents?
So that's a really good question. I think it's important for the kids to sort of, realize that, we're doing everything in our power, at least speaking for our school, to, make it as safe and as sanitary and clean as possible, as it can be. And the students, I never want to say people shouldn't worry, but, the students should, not worry about that stuff as much as, worrying about, getting back to their studies and those kinds of things. And it's going to be a little different. I mean, there's not going to be as much movement, I would think, in most schools throughout the country, where the bell rings and all the kids are in the hallways. I think, you're not going to go to a cafeteria anymore. You're going to eat in your classroom. So I think, those kinds of things the students should be well prepared for. And as for the parents, I think, look, they have to have enough trust in the school that they're sending their child to, and enough in the health departments and the educators that we're doing everything in our power to make it as clean and safe for their students, for their children to return to school so they can get the most out of learning.
Yes, yes. And I think, it's really important for the kids to go back to being kids and worrying about being a kid and getting their schoolwork done. I know that the adults are taking care of all the adult business. Well, Eric, thank you again so much for coming on tonight. It's been just such a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Anytime I can come on. You do great work, and I know we worked together before, so keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Everybody, have a good night and God bless.